Welcome to Creativity-Hive's weekly program. I am one of the founders of Creativity-Hive, Miriam Haugen, and we help budding videographers achieve massive editing skills through one-on-one teaching and live group coaching in Adobe's Premiere Pro and After Effects. And today we have our other co-founders, Neil and Mo, are going to give you some tips and tricks, and I'm going to bring Mo on here. Hello, Mo.
Hey everyone from a very cold Cape Town in South Africa. Hi.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to let you take it away.
Yeah, cool. So what we're going to do today is we're going to um, show you a few tips and tricks, and we're going to start by doing a really cool tip that most of you guys have seen done, but maybe have not been able to reproduce easily or have bought the asset and worked with that bought asset. So what we're going to try and achieve here is to get the CinemaScope lines around this image up here, so that you guys can animate it on. You've seen it's a very cool effect. I haven't done it, so you can't see the final result, but I'm going to do it on the fly. So just essentially, this is just a piece of footage, just some kind of cool stuff just going on, some scenery and things like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to firstly create a new sequence. I'm just going to actually just drag and drop down, because we don't want to complicate things. Let's imagine that's your edit. I'm just going to mute or just drop down the volume a little bit down here. And if I play it back, I've got this kind of thing happening, right? So what we want to do is we want to create a CinemaScope kind of environment with black bars top and bottom without having to bring in external assets. So how this is done is very simple. We're going to use, the legacy title tool. So if we go to the legacy title tool, it's under File, New, and you will see it's under legacy title. And I'll just call this, I'm going to create two. So I'm going to call one top. I'm just going to call this actually bars. So I'll show you what to do in an easy way. So just call this bars. Okay. And we've got this title tool here. And at the top, you see we have drawing tools, right? So I'm going to take one of them and kind of just go like, say about that much in this little title safe, action safe area. So we want it to be about that big. And then I'm just going to change the color to a black. Okay, so we've got that. That's great. And we're going to leave that like that, like so. And then we're going to close the title, legacy title screen. I'm just going to close it off. I'm going to call this, I'm just going to duplicate this. So I'm going to go Control C or Command C and Control V or Command V. So I'm going to call one the top bar. So top. Here. And I'm going to call the bottom one bottom BR bar, right? So if I go into the bottom bar, if I double click it, it takes me back. You can see that it's a duplicate of the top. So I'm just going to kind of bring it down here so that we know it's about the same position as the top. So I'm now going to close that down again, and it should close down instantaneously. We've got a top bar and we've got a bottom bar. So if I go to the top bar, we have the top, as you can see. And if I double click the bottom, we have a bottom bar, as we can see, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to bring both of them in, one above the other, or the bottom bar below there. And if I look at it now, if we look on our main monitor on the right, the program monitor, you can see, and if I go to full screen preview, there's my top bar, there's my bottom bar. But what we want to do is kind of make it look really cool. So we want to animate these in. So I'm just going to stretch these across right to the end of our edit. Let's imagine this is the end of our edit. And I'm going to go into the top bar, into the effects controls, and I'm going to play with the position. So the only position I need to worry about is not the X, which is on a horizontal basis. I want to play with the vertical, so I want to take it off screen. So I'm just going to move it off screen like this, right? So it's right at the edge of the screen. There you go. So that value will be 432, which is fine. And I'm going to animate that position, right? I'm just going to play it. Just going to play in. and I'll see it at what point I want it to come in. So at this point, I'm going to keyframe it so that it actually does come in, like so. And if I look at my animation now, got a really nice cool, right? That's very nice on the top bar. Now we're going to do the same with the bottom bar, right? So we click the bottom bar and we're going to take it off screen initially. Naturally, we're going to take it away like so. And we're going to create a keyframe here for position. And if I look at where my keyframe for the top bar was, I'm just going to snap this by holding Shift and coming down there. Click on that second bar at the bottom, and we need to create the keyframe there, so both of them go off screen or come on screen at the same time, sorry. And I'm just going to animate this back onto the screen like so. And if we look at it, and let's give you a full screen preview. Okay, so let's go back to auto full screen. And what I'll do is I'm going to extend these a little bit and just give them a little bit more time. So I'm just going to pull this out about that much and just snap to that keyframe and then go to the top. Oops. Go to the top. And pull this keyframe out, snap it down here. So it's going to be a little bit longer and slower and a little bit more dynamic in feel. Nice and slow. And you can give it any aspect ratio you want. You know, CinemaScope comes in different thicknesses and widths. So if you want to go a little bit thinner, you would actually animate it not to come right to this point down here. You'd maybe have it somewhere around there to give it a thinner look. And that, by that I mean this keyframe as an example. We'll just use this keyframe. We'll just kind of go about halfway through. So we got a little bit of a different aspect ratio. That will go about say there. And if I look at it now, and you got that running right through, right? That's great. And just be careful you don't have an extra keyframe. As you can see, there's an extra keyframe here somewhere. So let's just get rid of that one. Delete that. Yeah, that's right. And let's look at the top. If we have an extra keyframe, which should be there because we can delete it. Yeah, it's gone. That one should be fine. So let's look at that again. Yeah, that's perfect. All right, and then if we look at our edit, if we look at where we're going to end the edit, and we want it to go back to maybe say full screen at this point, say at this kind of point here. So be very, very careful here. Now, what would happen at this point if I start to animate this to go off screen like that? What would happen is from this point of the keyframe to this, it would start moving it back. We don't want that to happen. So we don't add the keyframe there. So what we do is we go in to say about here, and we copy this keyframe and we paste the keyframe. Just put your current indicator as to where you'd like to hold that keyframe. So I'm just going to paste the keyframe there. So from here to here, the value of this keyframe remains the same. And from here to here, nothing changes, which is what we want. And we want it to now go off screen from here to a certain point. So from here to here, we'll just make it kind of go off screen, which is great. So we're going to go back. We're going to just do that. Go to the bottom bar. We're going to hold the keyframe here, copy it, paste it, go back to the top, snap to that keyframe so that the bottom one is at the same point in time, and then just kind of get rid of this one as well. Okay, so when we look at it now, we play back. Let's just give you full screen. We play back. There goes those little CinemaScope lines, and you're back to full screen. So that's a really quick, easy tip for you guys to be able to create your own CinemaScope lines. It adds a lot of dynamic appeal. It adds a lot of, it's really dynamic when you're doing some stuff that has audio and so forth. Creates a very professional look. It also adds a lot of different emotion to what you're trying to express. So that's my first tip and trick, and easy, really simple to do. Just follow what I did. Understand the what keyframes are about. You need to be a little bit familiar with what keyframes are. Try to understand that when you put one keyframe at one position and another at a different space and time, the keyframe, whether it's position, scale, rotation, whatever it is, opacity, will change from one to the other. So make sure from one to the next, you don't want it to change. You copy the keyframe, you paste the same keyframe, so it's a holding of that keyframe. Unlike in After Effects where you can say toggle hold keyframe, this doesn't have that in Premiere Pro, so you have to copy and paste it. So that's my first tip and trick. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Pretty easy to do. You don't have to go out there and buy these assets. You can even do this without having to go to the legacy title tool. At some point, that title tool might not be in Premiere anymore. You can just go out in Illustrator, Photoshop, wherever you want, or just draw out two black bars and bring it in. That's all that you need to do. So that's my first one, and I think Neil is ready to show you some stuff. Yeah.
Okay, now if Neil can figure out how to share his screen here and get over to my Dell. So hopefully you're seeing my Dell screen now. And I'm going to be talking about something that a lot of people don't really use that much, or even many know about in color correction, and that is the apply match, which can get you a long ways towards a match if you give it something similar to match 2. And one of the biggest things you can have is when you're going down a sequence, you've got this pair of clips here, and let's say the end frame of this one and the first frame of this clip, if you want to run them together, the two cameras were set up and are showing very differently. So this can be really a devil of a thing to match by hand, but you can actually get a lot closer very fast with a particular little tool in the color wheels and match. Now, I'm in the color workspace in the Lumetri color panel over here, and I'm going to close the basic correction and go to the color wheels and match tab. And what's this whole match? Well, you see the comparison view button over here. I've also got an icon for it on my program monitor, but you go to the comparison view, click on comparison view, and now we get these two screens. Well, at the moment, they are the same, but if I use the navigation in my timeline to go to the next frame, you see now I have this last frame of this clip, and I have the first frame of the next clip. And as you can see, of course, we have Miriam looking very different in the two of them. But when you click on the comparison view, watch what happens over here when I click on comparison view in the Lumetri panel. You have the apply match button appears. And I've got face detection set on because I have a person in here, and they're roughly the same size in the screen. Having the image, having things as close as possible really helps. But at any rate, so I've got my face detection on, and Miriam is roughly the same size. So I'll go ahead and click the apply match button, and it says analyzing. And then you notice the color wheels and their Luma sliders have jumped here. And we are a lot closer to the other image just with a single click of a button. And now you could go ahead and apply some individual corrections to get closer to it. But really, for an awful lot of people, when you're doing a lot of your interview things and whatnot, this will actually get you there so fast and get you close enough that you don't have to worry about what you're doing at the time. So,
okay, so guys, the next thing we want to do is learn a little bit about, I would call it compositing, but I'm not going to go so far and say compositing. What I'm going to say though is what we want to do is understand what happens in Premiere Pro when you're working with stuff that is called blend modes. So with blend modes, you essentially have one image or one piece of video above another piece of video. And sorry, let me just get back to my workspace. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So we want to work with the blend mode, which means how something interacts with the layer beneath it, color-wise, luminous-wise, etc. So in this little sequence, we have a completely still image of a snowy village, right? So it's nothing, there is zero movement. And then we have this little thing called the black mushroom, right? So it's a piece of stock footage from Detonation Films. And I'm just going to create an in point about here, and then just kind of create the out point here. And I'm going to bring that above the snowy village. And as you can see, it's pretty small. So I'll just kind of make it a little bit bigger, about that much. And if I play it back, you can see, it's looking horrible because naturally it's just got a white background. But if we go into the top clip of this black mushroom explosion video, like so, and we look at the blend mode, and you can see there's a number of blend modes here. I want to show you just two that you need to understand, right? So we're going to go lighten and darken. So if I go to darken, what happens with darken? Darken takes away whites and shows the dark areas or blacks, all right? That's very important to understand. So let me just kind of get it up here so you guys can actually see what's going on. So up here, you can see it's taken away the entire kind of white background and left just that black background. If I change over to lighten, which is the opposite end of the spectrum, lighten shows white and hides black. So this is basic compositing, right? If you don't have a green screen, if you have pure black and white, even shades of gray are fine, as long as your back that you want to take away is a pure color. It will change, it will extract it for you. So we're going to go back to darken. So we've got this darken here. Let me go back to fit, and I'm just going to kind of move this guy position wise and place him around the back of the tree, somewhere around there, and make him a tad bit bigger, a little bit bigger, and then kind of just place him up around there and then push him back into the trees. So it's just kind of above the house. So if I look at it now, if I play it back, right? So you're seeing an explosion coming through, right? And now we're going to do a tad bit of color correction here. Nothing major. Let's see if we can do some stuff. Okay, so so if I go into my lumetri colors here, and I'm just going to really just go into some basic stuff. So I'm just going to go into curves. Just going to my RGB curves. So I'm just going to zoom right up on that, and I'm just going to move into that. Just kind of color correct that a little bit. Nothing too much. Just about there. About slide up, tad bit there. And I'm going to look at my greens. Bring down those greens a tad bit. Around so about there. About so, and then about there. So I'm going to my green curve, bring that down. Cool. All right, so let's just go back to fit, and I'm going to give you a full screen preview, and let's see how we look. Okay, so that's just your normal snowy village. Let's just play it back. Here comes the explosion around here. And you got some cool visual effects happening. I'm sorry, I actually should have stretched this out even more. Yep, okay, good. It's about there. Go back. You got that happening. You got a really cool explosion. and it's perfectly composited against the background. You got no edge artifacting, no kind of edge spill or anything like that that you would see. It's not like key light or anything like that you can play around with. In terms of green screen, this is for basic kind of using blend modes to create a composite, which is really, really cool to use. So if we had to take and hide that bottom layer, right? So the snowy village, and this time we'd maybe go in and put in let's say a piece of footage as an example, which isn't the best example to actually use because let me just go back here. Wouldn't be the really great piece of footage because you have to kind of track it and stuff like that. It would work best with a store. But if we had to, for example, take a piece of footage like this, let's use this. It's very short. Okay, and we'll just kind of bring that down here. Let's just put that down here. Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, and let's just scale it up. You shouldn't scale it up this way, but just for the heck of it, we're just going to kind of scale it up. Okay. And we can bring that black mushroom back in on its own. There it is. And if we want to kind of do that blend mode again, oops, I'm sorry, wrong one. Let's go back in there, let's darken that. And let's just kind of get this up so that mushroom is growing already. You'll be able to see it. It's very small at the moment, but there it is out here. Now, what I want you guys to see is something super, super important. This is the reason I did it, right? Was that, remember the previous one had a really nice white background, right? Remember that? And you can see how color and luminance plays with one another. Look at the top here. There's a little bit of black area on the top of this particular, let me make it a little bit smaller. So you'll see you got a little bit of black area, and that white is now starting to show there. So you must remember, you need to have a plain white background against something that the blend mode can work with. With this sort of blend mode happening here, because of the color information in this green area, you're getting some sort of issue. You can barely see it. Let's move this over with the slip tool. Let's move it to somewhere here. As you can see now, you've got this going on down here, like so. About there. If I play it back, if I play it just from that, you see. So you need to be very careful with this. Try not to do this with footage that's moving unless you're going to be tracking. So it works really well with stuff that is actually just static. So that snowy village at the bottom was the perfect way to go for compositing. So this is just kind of compositing on the cheap, so to speak. And it's a really great way to create an intro, maybe with a text title using a Mogit or something like that. And that's a basic way to work with blend modes. And don't be afraid to see what blend modes actually do. So if I take my blend mode and change it to something like color dodge, it'll start doing some really weird and wonderful things. Again, this is just a black and white, but if you had a different color image, you can see you kind of got like an X-ray vision thing happening here. So blend modes never do they actually do the same thing all the time. It really depends on the color and luminance information on the lower layer and how the top layer reacts and kind of interacts with it. So it's something to play with. It's great. It's really nice to play with them with titles. Very cool to be able to play with them with titles, because you put a title and below that you put, an ocean, something about an ocean, and you use a blend mode and you see how that works. So, play around with them. Quick tip, really easy to play with blend modes. Most people don't even know the blend mode is actually here. And yeah, that's a little tip from me. And then we back over to Neil.
Okay, well, I hope everybody's seeing my Premiere Pro screen at the moment. And What I'm going to talk about real quick is just some basic things with doing some captions and graphics, which a lot of people don't really get. And that is, they'll want to go, how do you add captions and graphics? And they'll try and use like the old legacy titler or something. But I'm in my graphics Neil workspace. I've created a bunch of custom workspaces, and it's pretty an easy thing to do, and it makes it so that anytime I sit down and work in Premiere Pro, I'm working in spaces that are set up for me, and I really like doing it. But essentially, what I've done is I've taken one that uses the Essential Graphics panel over here as really the key operative panel that I'm going to be working with. But let's hit the Browse tab here. And I've got highlighted down here, I've got my local templates folder selected and libraries selected. Depending upon what you click here, you'll get different things available. But I've got this basic lower third here, just for an example. This is a really basic kind of thing that one does in graphics. And your name here, which obviously they're expecting you to replace that for the name of the person that you're working with. And the second line is smaller, which would be their title or location or whatever. And a lot of people have just some difficulty because the way these things are built, it's kind of a fiddly operation. Like I've dragged it over here, but it's not selected. So although I can see it nicely on the line there, I don't have anything over here, controls I can do with it. So I need to select it on the timeline. Now the edit tab pops up and I've got second line is smaller, which is the lower line here, and your name here. Well, so now what can you do? If you click on something, and this is one of the things you really need to do with these programs. In order to get to the items, you need to click on things. And now that I've clicked on second line is smaller, notice it's both got an active box around it out here in the program manager, and it has a whole lot of options that have appeared. And so it's in these options that the fun begins, because we can just go down to say background, click on the background color. Let's give it a red background. And now if I click off of the clip so I can actually see what's going on, I've got a red background, but it's really tight to the text, right? So we click on that graphic again, click on second line is smaller, and we go down to the background, and the lower of the two options here is actually the size. It doesn't say it, but if we do something like that, I can change the size of that background box. So now when we look at it, we see the background box is in a larger box that more than surrounds it and has some transparency to it. So we set the transparency, again, having to click all the way back on that up there by this one here. We bring this down, and now when I click off so we can see it, it's a very faint red line. But if I click and get back over here and bring the transparency up, it is a little bit of a brighter line. And that's the way you work with things, because you do the same thing on working with your name here. And of course, clicking and replacing the text, like say R. Neil Haugen. And then clicking, away from the thing for a moment so that I can see what I've got there. Now, if I want to change the text on that, of course, then it's back to clicking on R. Neil Haugen and coming down, and I can change the color of the text. So let's go with a light bluish color in the text, and that's how easy it is to change those things. But it's just, there's a lot of clicking. And so, and a lot of times when people will be going, okay, well, but I've got it active, but where's all the controls? You don't see the controls until you click on the specific item. Now, and you can do a lot of these things, you can do them either in the Essential Graphics panel, or you can come over here on this side, the left side, to the effects control, and now I can do the text, and I can have some of the same controls run from over here. And why do you have them two places? Well, everything ends up in the effects control panel, and So it's a big compilation place, and you can work from there. Some people love to work everything from the effects control panel, but they have these other panels just so they have these specific controls for that specific item. But just remember that when you're working on one of these things, in order to get to the controls for it, you need to select the item on the timeline, and then you need to select the specific item that you want to work on and adjust for its stroke or any of the other options that you can get with it. And that takes care of this option.
Well, that's it for today's show. If you would like to join the Creativity Hive community, we have a Facebook group, the Creativity Hive Inner Circle. Just join us. You can share ideas, ask questions, know when we're going live again, and gain valuable tips. See you next time.